Welcome everyone to Campaign's breakfast briefing event on marketing strategies. I'm Nadeem Qureshi, the publisher at Campaign Middle East. Thank you everyone for attending our event today. This was our first event that we had to postpone after the heavy rains last week. I hope everyone and the families were safe during that time. Before we get on with today's event, I wanted to brief everyone on the latest developments at Campaign Middle East and our partners. We've just closed Campaign's April issue, which has the TV and video guide, as well as the Campaign's agency Faces to Watch. As you are aware, in this annual edition, Campaign recognizes the best upcoming talent aged 30 and under in the region working for media, creative, comms, and digital agencies. We have received a record number of more than 300 entries this year, and this bumper issue will be out by mid next week, so please stay tuned for that. Campaign will now be publishing our annual Saudi Report 2024 next month on May 27th. We are in the process of reaching out to our partners for Saudi agency listings, data and research, local expert pieces, best recent work for Saudi clients, and of course, for those planning media campaigns and marketing strategies, we are also looking for good insights as well. So please feel free to reach out to the editorial team to be part of this special country report. Our next event will also be in Saudi, which is Campaign's Saudi Briefing on Talent and Technology in Riyadh on May 30th. At the Holiday Inn Riyadh in the business district. Our first event in Saudi this year delves into the dynamic intersection of talent and technology shaping the media and marketing landscape in Saudi Arabia. Here is a short highlights video from the event last year. Justin and Sonia from our editorial team are in the process of programming this event. So please reach out to them with suggestions on key topics you would like to see covered in this event, and we hope to see you all in the Saudi event next month too. Still on Saudi, we have just announced the dates for the Athar festival this year. Athar is Saudi Arabia's meeting place for the creative marketing community. The festival is taking place this year during 5th and 6th November 2024 in Riyadh. And it brings together more than 1,500 decision makers from agencies, brand, platforms, government, and young talent from the kingdom and around the world across 2 days, hosting 2 stages of content from senior, global, and regional speakers. Let's also have a look at the highlights from the inaugural edition of Athar last year in 2023.
Welcome to the inaugural day of the inaugural Athar Festival of Creativity, specifically for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
I have to say, as you rightly put it, we were a panel of the agency group leaders in the region, and that tells you about the importance of this festival. We're all here at a very senior level, but also you have the young generation and this interaction between the two audiences.
It is the first time to happen, so we're happy that it happened in Saudi. We're happy that, finally in Saudi we have our own festival of creativity.
I always find that coming here enriches my visions about the world, and allows me to connect with a bubbling and energizing and exciting local creative community, whether that's marketeers or advertising agencies. And today was no different.
There was a high level of engagement. I mean, I was looking at the crowd, lots of, I was humbled by seeing lots of senior experts and CEOs and professionals. I think it's a lot more condensed in terms of the quality of the attendance.
Well, first of all, the vibe, the energy, the mix, the diversity, which always adds to creativity and builds on it. I'm very happy. I'm very excited. And in fact, I look forward next year as well.
Next year, we will actually have a live competition. So we will be judging the work of 2024 and rewarding that work at Athar next year.
سعيد جدا بالحصول على هذه الجائزة لتعني لي شيء الكثير حقيقة. يعني اليوم تقدير يقدر بأثر بدراكس من كل المسؤولين عن الجائزة.
نستمر بقوة وعزيمة وإصرار نبقى أكبر قصة نجاح في القرن ال21. وهذه كلمات مؤثرة جاية من مين؟ من المؤثر الأول، من الممكن الأول، ومن الملهم الأول، صاحب السمو الملك الأمير محمد بن سلمان بن عبد العزيز ولي العهد ورئيس مجلس حفظه الله.
The call for content for the Athar Festival 2024 is now live. Submit your speaking proposals or nominate a speaker to take stage at Athar. You can visit atharfestival.com for more information to speak to the Athar Festival team members present here today. We've got Ghassan and Fardeen standing right there if you guys want more information about Athar. Coming back to our campaign's event, we would like to thank all the partners for supporting us at our event today. Our gold sponsors are Dentsu, Fusion 5, and Group M. You will hear more from them as the day progresses. Our associate sponsor for today is SeedTag, and here's a short video about them. We have a partner sitting in the front row, so if anyone wants to communicate with them, please go ahead, do so. Please make sure that you're also contributing regularly to campaign. Keep sending those opinion and thought leadership topics to the editorial team along with your latest news, work, and appointments. We also have an online job section on campaignme.com where you can post and search for the latest job opportunities and career advices from industry experts. Please also send us your valuable feedback on today's event by scanning the QR codes on the agenda papers in front of you, so that we can work with our partners for much stronger and relevant content. Right, that's it from me. I will hand over the stage to Campaign's editor, Justin Harper, now, who will take today's event forward. Thank you everyone once again for attending, and I look forward to seeing you all in our Saudi event next month. Take care.
Thanks, Nadeem. Good morning and welcome to our Marketing Strategies event. If we held it last Friday as planned, we would have to have called it Flooding Strategies, with tips on how to get to an event when the metro and many roads are closed. Thankfully, Dubai has largely recovered and we are back on track to deliver what we hope will be an insightful morning on new marketing strategies. When we held this event this time last year, it was clear that gaming was a key part of the puzzle when it came to new ways of reaching consumers. And this is a theme that we'll be building on this morning. It's an incredibly exciting space and so much is happening on an almost weekly basis. The way brands are weaving their way into the world of gaming is a work in progress and many lessons are being learned. And we will talk more about that later. Now we're going to start today with a keynote presentation called Crafting Consumer Connections Through Content, which will also touch upon gaming as one of those latest innovations. Our speakers will demonstrate how, with enriched partnerships, immersive gaming experiences, and omni-channel sponsored content, brands can go beyond to deliver on the expectations of the always-on consumer. Before I welcome our speakers onto the stage, we have a video to play first from the sponsors, Group M.
We don't work for a company. We work for an idea. And it's a great idea. It's allowed us to use technology and data to reach customers in the most creative ways, always adapting to an ever-changing world, so advertising works better for people. This is because media is alive, constantly moving and inventing, where everyone from media technologists to scientists to creative thinkers are vital and at the center, always connecting in new ways, holding brands and customers' best interests at heart.
Okay, Group M. So I welcome onto the stage Vikrant Shetty, who is the head of content at Group M, Mina, and Bernat Cabrera Vidielli, who is the marketing manager at Perfetti Van Mel Mina. Please join us on stage. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. How's everyone doing? I think the question has changed for the last few days to how's everyone doing to how's your house doing and how's your car doing? Did you get your insurance claims and everything is fine? So I'm glad everyone's back and everything's safe. As you can see, I usually want to keep the client with me, but it's probably better to place the client on the other side so we can present to you much better. The session today is all about crafting consumer connections. So we're going to take you through a bunch of ideas that we've gone through in terms of how do we connect with the consumer using content. Now, content is quite a broad term and sometimes very loosely used as a term also. So just for the session, we're going to focus on three main pillars. One is influencer partnerships. Now, influencer partnership is kind of a hate-love relationship with agencies. I mean, yes, we love putting influencers in our media plan, but dealing with influencers is not so easy. So we're going to talk to you about a little more about how we worked with influencers for Perfetti. We're going to talk about and gaming. Now, gaming has obviously become huge. It's becoming even bigger the day by day with esports becoming super huge. This year you have the Esports World Cup happening in Saudi. So the importance of gaming and esports is huge. So I just want to talk a little bit about how Perfetti and the brands under Perfetti have used gaming as a platform to talk to our consumers. And then finally, branded content and omni-channel. It's again quite a broad term, but we've looked at how we can sponsor partnerships or leverage content to again build consumer connections and be more culturally relevant to our audience in this day and age. Now, before I get into the what, as you would get as an agency with typical questions from a client, is the why. Why would we do content? Why can't we just stick to the TVC? Why can't we just get the media reach required? Why do we even need to go into content? So there's always a need to justify numbers behind the content and the plans around it. So these are a few stats. When you talk about influencer marketing, I'm sure there's a lot of stats. I've just picked a few of them to justify and explain why we focus on these three pillars. With influencers, we've realized in terms of research, it's 2 times more credible versus a brand asset. And we've seen that. So when we place a brand asset and you see the organic engagement and the reach versus an influencer content, it's twice as more credible. Because obviously consumers now feel brands are very biased in what they say. But when a third party talks about a brand, it feels a lot more authentic. In terms of purchase, it's 3.5 times more inclined to purchase when an influencer talks about a brand. So we've seen that also. So again, pushing to commerce, getting consumers to buy versus an influencer talking about it, there's a lot more effectiveness around it. When it comes to gaming, this number, actually, or the first statement was quite a bit of a surprise for me because the gaming industry is more than video and music combined together as an industry. So I think for a lot of us, probably we're out of the Gen Z, out of the age group to play games, but when you see that stat, it's quite alarming. It's quite a huge number to comprehend. So gaming is big. And if you look at just Saudi market, keeping in mind of the population, you almost have 27 million gamers just in Saudi. Now, this includes obviously the casual gamers. We're not looking at the professional esports gamers, but if you look at professional and esports and casual, you have a big chunk of audience to talk to. And then final piece of branded content. Branded content, it's almost 55% resonates with audience more than display. And this is more around aided brand recall. So when we did a survey and study to understand what brands were realized through display versus branded content, the numbers there are quite huge and different. And also, 70% of the consumers prefer high quality content when they want to learn about a brand. So they rather have branded content but good quality content versus a display ad or a TVC. So the numbers are there to justify, which is another reason why Bernard has been very kind enough to approve the plans and get things rolling.
Yeah, so in Perfetti, before the pandemic, 2019, 2020, about 10% of our budget was invested in content. Basically, influencers back then was mostly influencers. But now we are passing the 30% of our budget, of our total media budget is going into content, and for next year we are even willing to spend more on that. Because of the numbers here, we believe that it's the right way to continue communicating in the region.
So jumping into influencer partnerships, now again, with Perfetti, we have a portfolio of brands. For this session, we're going to focus more around mentors and mentors gum category. So we realize obviously influencers are huge. We need to work with influencers. The brand stands for freshness, and the tagline is all about yes to fresh. Now I think the key point here is the fact that when we brief influencers, there's a lot of rigor that goes in picking influencers, choosing which influencer is relevant, where does the audience stay, how many followers are relevant in our market. So all that is done by GOAT, which is a proprietary tool of Group M. So the influencer selection happens there. But I think a lot of times we lose momentum when it comes to briefing the influencers. When it comes to briefing the influencers, it's more of a media brief that goes to the influencers, which is probably the worst way to do it because you're probably overloading the influencer with information, which then gets confused because what you put in is what comes out from the influencers. So one thing that we've done really well between Perfetti and us is to simplify the brief to just making it very clear of the do's and don'ts and giving as much creative freedom to the influencer, because when you do that, you get these numbers. I'll play the video, for example, but that's the whole thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we have all done many influencers campaigns. I mean, influencers are the way that we understand today. Influencers started about 10 years ago, more or less, even a bit earlier than that. And we have all done good and bad campaigns with influencers, I'm pretty sure. For us, what it really works is this: start with a very open brief, give them the key communication message, give them the brand guidelines, give them some red lines that they cannot cross, and let them create a content that is true to their platform and to their community. Not so much true to your brand, but still passing the message of the brand. If you want to really impose the brand on the influencer, it's when their community doesn't engage, and then for that you can just go with a traditional TVC, put it on social media, and it will work better than, and most probably cheaper per impression.
So the brief here for the influencers was very clear. It was mentors, tagline, yes to fresh. We want to talk about freshness. We have 3 new flavors. Do it your own way. We give you the creative freedom. So these are 2 examples I'm just going to play. Quite fresh, very clean and neat. No real details about features, promoters, sales, and everything else.
To a superhero, yeah. Hit that pill, turn me to a superhero, yeah. From my 90s, turn me to a superhero, yeah. Metro, don't trust you. I'm on that dope again, I'm on that flow again. Switch up the flow again, yeah. Fly in the parachute, gripping that pole again. I'm on that all again, yeah.
So the quality of the content here, I mean, we're quite surprised because this would probably be done by a TVC brand, or you probably have creative agency produce it, but for influencers to do that kind of content for us was very refreshing, and you can see the numbers also. I'll play another video before I talk a little more. This was another influencer. Again, we give them all the freedom, produce content, and make it fresh. You see that's very clean, very neat. Now in terms of the numbers also that you see from the average benchmark that we had, when you usually I use work with influencers, for a macro influencer you probably get 2-3% engagement rate. When it comes to micro influencers, you're almost around 6-7%, and that's a good benchmark. But if you see these numbers and related to the video plays, again, we're not looking at the followers. We avoid using followers because a lot of them are inflated. So based on people who have seen the content to the engagement rate, it's almost 10%. Which is much higher than benchmark. So we know that this content is being resonated with the audience, it's being engaged with, so to produce more of these kind of content rather than being very scripted, forced brand integrations. The other one I wanted to showcase to you is, like I mentioned to you, gaming. For gaming, we worked with a partner called Division to bring this whole gaming platform to life. Now, this is a case study that we used and did in Ramadan. Ramadan is the month where gaming increases quite a lot. It's a time when people have a lot more time to play games. The other thing that we realized with research is that when we understood the consumption movements of our gamers, they usually consume gum when they're under pressure. So they feel when they consume the gum, they're a lot more relaxed to play the game. Which is why it's super important for us to get into gaming, working with gaming influencers, and kind of creating content around it. I'll play the case study video. It's just examples of how we went into Twitch and streamers to integrate the brand in multiple places.
ايه راح المنتوس والله يا زلمه تفهم
خليك سموث مع عيلة منتوس.
Mentos fixes your mental شباب.
Oh damn.
My breath fresh.
منتوس عم بندهله.
Pronounce it, Mentos.
Let's win. Mentos up.
Mentos is so much fun. It's like fresh champagne.
So the reason why we did this campaign and why we did it there in Ramadan, I guess many of you don't know, but gum consumption in Ramadan drops a lot, like half of what it's usually consumed in a month. The reason why we did it is because Mentos is an international brand, but we want to try to localize or to be more relevant for the local consumers, and we know that Ramadan is the right moment to do that. Even if gum as a category is not so top of mind, and therefore Mentos is not so top of mind for the consumers during that period, we believe that associating ourselves with the moments where they enjoy, where they spend time playing, where they spend time with their families, is important for the future of the brand. And continuing with this, the other thing that we did during Ramadan last year and this year is our presence in NBC Ramadan shows. So as you may know, most probably better than me, during Ramadan there are many shows that go on air, mostly in NBC, and we make sure that our product was visible and very well represented in these shows through content.
Yeah, and this is just two examples of how we could partner with channels like NBC and integrate the brand. There's pre-production, I'll play the video. This is when we know the brief well in advance. There's enough time to get into production. And a lot of times these NBC shows are produced 5 months, 6 months in advance. So it's not always that we get a brief from the brand to brief production teams to integrate in the show. But the other good thing is you also have post-production. Post-production is you can go live 2-3 weeks just before it goes live. It's where you integrate the brand using technology, and you can place the brand, you can have branding done on the shows without really integrating in the production element of it. Yeah, so I'll play the video of the first one, which is pre-production, which is a typical way of getting the cast, consume the gum, use the product in reality as part of the shoot.
يا اخي كيف قاعد تاكل انت يا اخي؟ مرة سبايسي.
بسم الله عليك، ما تاكل سبايسي؟ متعود على اكل الماما والبابا والله. اسمع، خذ هذه لا تموت علينا. ابلع شوي وكمل اكلك. شديت نفسي يا شيخ، ما اكل سبايسي.
So yeah, the brief was very clear to make it culturally relevant, make sure in every consumption place of the show, make sure it's being used very relevantly. So those are the bunch of integration that we did. This is one example of Sikat Al-Zafar on MBC. And again, like I mentioned to you, when you lose the production timelines and you can't produce on time within the production time, you can do post-production. And this is an example of using technology to integrate the brand within shows when you're not part of the production element.
أنا رح غير تيابي على السريع وأطلع. يلا.
Noura. That what you saw there was the screen. Along with this, we had multiple integrations across Ramadan where the brand was seen natively. You probably didn't realize it also. Now, what we thought is that it's very harmless integration. If you overdo it, there's no real harm. But we are so wrong, because what I'm going to show you next is the biggest question that we had afterwards.
So yeah, so last year after Ramadan, we went for a bit of social media listening. I mean, we didn't need to listen a lot because the consumers were reaching to us quite a lot. So if you want to play the video first for them to understand what was happening.
And I'll play the video because the funny part is this video was done by just a normal consumer. And then we realized the extent of integration that we've done across shows. And it's funny in a way, but I'll play the video.
So let's start with the good news first. They clearly show us, so that's the good part, right? The bad part maybe is that they show us a bit too much. So then it's the moment that you go back to the agency and say, okay, maybe we overdid it a bit. How can we do it better, more integrated, a bit less harmful for the viewer of the consumer? A bit, I mean, they clearly see it, but it doesn't overwhelm the show itself, right? So this year what we did is try to diversify a bit more. We concentrated in Ramadan still, but we took shows that go before Ramadan and after Ramadan in order to try to have visibility for a longer period of time, so a bit more of continuity media, but at the same time not so focused that the people get even bothered by it, right? So.
There's one comment that Bernard always wants to ignore. I'll read it out for you because you probably can't see it. It's an Arab show, so probably someone's cousin was a marketing manager and needed a push.
Yeah.
When Mentors billboards have more screen time than the main couple in the show. So when we started reading these comments, we were like, okay, now I think we've done too much integration. There's too much branding. We probably need to ease it out a bit. So I think that's, again, there's also a lot of good part, but I think we need to be realistic about what's the reality, and this whole session is about learning. So there are points that we need to learn off, and I think the learning of this was that we need to spread out our integrations, not condense it so much that it becomes overwhelming for a consumer. It becomes another ad within a show, which was not the objective, obviously. So this example is another partnership that we had, and the thought process behind this was the fact that I'm sure you know the guy on the top left corner, the biggest football star in the world, Ronaldo.
After Messi.
This is always a debate. So when Ronaldo came into the Saudi league, you had Benzema come into the Saudi league. Like usual, clients and brand managers are like, how do we get to partner with him? What can he do? Can he hold the mentor's gum? Can he consume the gum? Can we partner with the team? Now, if Ronaldo has to even talk about the brand, it's $5 million. You partner with Al Nassr, which is the team that he plays for, is $10 million. Now, we don't have those budgets, but we still want to be part of the Saudi league. We want to be part of the culture. So this is where we were a little more smart in terms of how do we get more buck for the money, in terms of what kind of integrations can we do with the partnership. So we partnered with MBC. We partnered with MBC to extend an on-ground partnership with Al Awal. Al Awal is the football home ground for Al Nassr. So what we did is we sponsored the stadium instead of sponsoring the team or the player. By sponsoring the stadium, we placed branding on screens across the stadium. And then we spoke to MBC to make sure it's covered on TV as much as possible and gets the exposure required. So while you see on the left-hand side, there was a lot of branding that happened with a lot of focus with Ronaldo and branding of Mentos in the background. We had squeeze backs on TV. So while you had branding seen on stadium, there were Mentos squeeze bags. We had tunnel placements. So while the people went into the stadium, you had big bottles of Mentos. So it got the exposure required without investing the millions that we would think of sponsoring Ronaldo or the team itself.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a brand that, okay, we have an important budget, it's not that we have a small budget, but clearly we don't have 10 million spare to go and give them to Ronaldo or Al Nassr. You have to be smart on how you use your money and try to get the best out of it. And I think the Al Awal Park is a clear example on how we saw the opportunity, we saw how relevant the Saudi League is becoming for the region, how we wanted to be associated with it, and this is how we executed it.
Yeah. Jumping into the last bits, so then comes what's next in terms of content. We just have 3 points we want to focus on. One is the fact that influencers are now not just going to be branding like what we did or awareness, they're going to be focused more on commerce. There was also a discussion that we had about influencers now turning into virtual influencers and AI influencers, which I think is another topic for another day. Gaming is becoming a lot more immersive from what we did to getting into the metaverse world. And then, can we ever have any session without AI? AI, how do you use AI? In terms of content measurement and even consumer participation, I will show you an example of how we've used AI for Perfetti to get consumers to use AI and participate in the campaign. So the first one is influencers. Again, the retail media is booming. I mean, you have numbers there in terms of 160 billion by 2027. What we've seen is also when we use influencer assets on Amazon, there's 3 times more inclination to click and buy versus just brand assets. So repurposing influencer content in the space of commerce will be very important. TikTok Shop, it's huge globally, not as big yet. It's going to become big very soon. One market that's massive is China. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in China, the market of commerce and the way they use influencers on live is crazy. That's just an example that's playing in the between as a video. We haven't reached in the Middle East to that level or that market state yet, but we know very soon it's going to get to that point where influencers are going to use to sell products. Now, obviously, you can't use influencers everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And not maybe all the categories would fit particularly this, right? But it's our challenge as marketeer to make it fit as well. So for example, candy, how would an influencer be selling a lollipop? I mean, they usually are more for skincare, fashion, and things like this. But if you go to a seasonal moment like Halloween, and where the moms or the kids are looking for their treats and everything, then you can place it in a commercial like this, place it on the hands of an influencer, recommending it and driving you to purchase, and most probably you will have a very good results. So again, it's the challenge of the marketeer to try to fit the category as well on these media channels.
Yeah. The second point is metaverse gaming. I think when we talk about gaming, you probably heard about Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft. Now, just for the session, I just want to focus more on Roblox because Roblox is something that's huge. You You literally have 50 million active users and 2.5 hours of consumer time per day, which is massive. It's all about virtual experiences. It's about outfits. And it's about real money, which I didn't know until my son started asking me Robux. And I'm like, what is Robux? I'm like, okay, buy the Robux. What's the big deal about it? But then when you realize Robux becomes real money when your credit card is being swiped every single time, then we realize this is serious. They are taking your money. This video is actually a parent's guide on Roblox, which I started literally realizing that it's a game in a game in a game. So it keeps the kids super busy. It makes you use Robux to get outfits. It makes you chase parents like me to swipe my credit card to buy outfits. What you see on the left-hand side is more relevance in the Middle East. Yas Island has done something. So it's giving you a virtual experience of Yas Island on the Roblox world. The numbers bottom are huge. You can see the game integrations are growing from 2019 to 2023, where you have 240 activations on Roblox. So it is becoming serious. It's more immersive right now, rather than just working with streamers and gamers.
And here is the part that I love. It's how do we measure content? How do we measure the impact of content? I think that as marketeers, we want to keep pushing for content because we know it works, but we don't know how much it works. And when we go to internal forums and we try to push media budget that is growing every year more towards here, they are asking more and more questions. So what is the ROI? How are you calculating the results on this? And I think that here is where the industry needs to grow more and better, creating the right tools to measure the impact of content, getting to a similar level of the level that we have when we go on radio, when we go on digital. We know exactly how many impressions, we know the reach, we know absolutely everything. When we talk about content, we are not there yet. And I think that, yeah, all together we have to push to be delivering to get to this kind of information. And for us, I think that AI will be helping us a lot. Will be helping us a lot to get the results faster, to get better results, so to understand how the content is performing in a way that right now we don't know yet.
Yeah, so this is where we are working with even platforms like MMS and MBC to kind of measure. So until now, there was no real measurement on content, but we're getting into measuring content by doing a brand love study to justify content integrations, because all this while has been about TVCs and brand exposure, but what about content? So we're doing the first ever study with them to kind of justify that so that we have better answers to Bernard and the team about whether content is really working on these shows. Just want to end, because I know I've been getting assigned to leave the stage soon. This is the last video. I spoke about AI. I spoke about the fact that we want to get consumers also involved in consumer participation. So this is an example how, this is a case study video, by the way, of how we used AI for Chupa Chups Lollipop to let kids build their imagination of what their dream world of lollipops is. So I'll play the video as how we've used AI for consumer participation.
Lollipops are a beacon of joy for children. And with the logo designed by Salvador Dali, market leader Chupa Chups has been bringing visual magic into kids' lives with eye-catching candies for 50 years. But in the UAE, market share was being challenged by flashy new competitors. Chupa Chups was in danger of losing its sparkle. So, we combined the visual appeal of the brand with the passion of its audience, drawing. All parents know children spend hours scribbling away, creating magical wonderlands using their imagination. But what happens when you power this passion with the latest technology? Using AI, we built a bespoke site for children to create their personalized Chupa Chups Lollipop dream world, establishing a unique and safe connection with our most important customers. From sweet-filled souks to sailing ships made of lollies, we let children's imagination run riot, and their creations were published for everyone to see. Ads across Meta, TikTok, and Snapchat engaged our artists and their agents, well, parents. Exciting prizes kept our architects coming back, From bespoke Chupa Chups birthday parties to a family trip to Disneyland Paris for the Grand Prix winning designer. The result? 16% year-on-year growth in sales. 86,000 dream worlds generated, huge for a country of just 9 million people. An 11% rise in brand awareness. And an explosion of lollipop art on social media, all thanks to a new generation of Chupa Chups artists.
Yeah, so that's just an example of how we use AI to build content and let kids imagine their dream world of lollipops. I think they made sure my clicker stops working so I can leave. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope it was useful.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that very interesting presentation. I've got a sudden need to go and chew on a Mentos, and I just can't think why that is. Also, feel the urge to go and put a tub of Mentos in a microwave oven and see what happens, just like one of those videos. So yeah, it's definitely food for thought. Okay, so the next thing we have for you is our first of two panels. This one is called Are You Playing Attention? And surprise, surprise, it's about the exciting world of gaming. Before I welcome our panelists onto the stage, here are a few facts about gaming, pretty staggering figures. There are over 3 billion gamers worldwide tuned into virtual landscapes, and with a market that is projected to be worth $320 billion by 2026. No surprise that advertisers are increasingly interested in tapping into gaming as a media channel, and we're going to talk more about that now. I will be moderating this panel, and I'd like to welcome our panelists, Helmy Abdulhadi, House of Gaming Director, Service Plan Middle East, Asim Sheikh, Managing Director, LPS and Stream Shriek, and Andrea Florence Lobo, who is the Digital Marketing Manager, Pizza Hut, Middle East and Pakistan. Please join me onto the stage. Okay, thank you for joining us. We've got one extra chair, so if anyone feels they want to talk about gaming and feels excited to join us, then feel free to jump up on stage. But until then, could I ask you each to just briefly introduce yourself and put your money where your mouth is and tell us, are you a gamer? And prove it by telling us what game you play. I confess I'm not a gamer, but I've got two teenage sons who play Fortnite, and I feel like Fortnite is a member of our family, the number of times they talk about it, so that's sort of me. How about you, Helmy?
Thank you for having us, Justin. Yep, my name is Helmy. I'm Palestinian. I lived half my life here in the Middle East, half my life in Canada, abroad. I moved to Dubai around 3.5 years ago now, and been working at Service Plan Group Middle East for that time. Yes, I'm an avid gamer, so at least there's that. I play a bunch of FPSs and single-player games, but now to actually put that hobby to work over the past few years has been a bit of a privilege. But yeah, that's pretty much about me. I didn't start out in marketing, actually legal and economics, but I guess you kind of end up somewhere different, right? Thank you.
Absolutely. And Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I lead digital marketing at Pizza Hut Middle East and Pakistan. I take care of everything in the digital and organic space in terms of acquisition, retention, loyalty, and I'm the gaming lead at our brand team as well. I'm basically from India, and I've been in Dubai since the last 5 years. I am an aspiring gamer, I'd say. My husband tries to teach me Call of Duty, and I'm struggling, but I'm learning. So that's about me, and thank you for having me today.
Pleasure. And on the end there, Sam?
Hi, my name is Asim, and I lead an agency called LPS, but the gaming outfit that we have is called Stream Shriek. What we believe is that gaming is more a media play than an esports play. It's more about game streamers. That's where brands need to be in. And I am an amateur gamer, and I truly believe that you don't need to be a gamer to be in the business of gaming. I think I'm more a business person who's into gaming. Ask Phil Knight if he was ever an Olympian, he would not say yes. He'd probably say that I'm better off building shoes for Olympians than actually being an Olympian. So I don't think you have to be a gamer to be in the business of gaming.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you for joining us. So let's stick with you, Asim. And our first question is, how has your brand or agency, in your case, been positioning itself to take advantage of gaming? I mean, specifically, what are the various entry points to the gaming space from live streaming, reward video, and intrinsic in-game environments? There's lots of different opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think if you ask this room about how does someone sort of get into gaming, people would have very different answers, right? I think there are it's sort of a multi-headed animal. You start. A lot of people think gaming is all about esports. It's not. You have esports. You have. You could also work with game publishers. You could also work with, as people call it, endemic brands who have gamers as their direct customers. But then there's also this phase of working with gaming in the media space, right? You can look at game streamers where they actually are not professional gaming. They're not professional gamers who work in esports, but at the end of the day, they have huge influence, huge communities, which perhaps could probably bring you a higher ROI purely because of the fact that that's an untapped market. And then there are opportunities within games, like in-gaming opportunities where you could actually collaborate with games and create memorable moments when people actually play this game. So it's esports, in-gaming moments, game streamers, so all of these things. And we basically operate in the game streamer space.
Okay. And Andrea, we know Pizza Hut have been doing some cool things in the gaming space. It fits well with fast food and gamers. What have you been doing?
Absolutely. We started our gaming journey in April 2022, and we sort of reach consumers to all touch points in gaming. Maybe starting from building our own gaming platform, Pizza Hut Middle East, as well as pushing a lot of content. I would not say pushing, I would say creating a lot of content on social media. We sort of have 55,000 engaged gamers, and we do even esports, live streaming, as well as intrinsic gaming experiences. So last year, we've spoken about Roblox. Pizza Hut built its very own virtual world on Roblox, where imagine a Roblox user. They can build their own avatar where they're wearing these cute cheese or tomato onesies, having a pepperoni eyeglass, and go through every level of the game to building ingredients and making your own pizza in the virtual universe. It was pretty cool. Many of our users within the Middle East had more than a 50% engagement rate, and it was one of the really cool experiences to have. We do a lot on esports and live streams as well. It largely depends on what our objective is as a brand. So pizza as a category is largely a sharing occasion where everyone comes together as a family, as a group of friends. Last year, we launched a product called Melts, where we wanted to venture into the individual category. So to sort of break that norm and enter into that, we had a challenge called Meltdown, where we leveraged several gaming titles, right? From Fortnite, Harry Potter Legacy, Resident Evil, both with single player as well as multiplayer games. And our engagement was really good. Both like from an influencer leading the whole esports, as well as their audience looking at it, gave us really good results, right? Because they had a chance to win exclusive merchandise, promo codes, and Pizza Hut coupons, and who doesn't love pizza? So essentially, within intrinsic gaming, influencer partnerships, esports, we sort of do it all.
Absolutely. Did you say cheese onesie?
Yes.
Okay.
And pepperoni glasses.
Okay. And how about you, Helmi?
Well, first, you guys got any more coupons to go around, or now after all that pizza talk,
I might create one with your name.
Nice. To be honest, Justin, I think I agree with a lot of what Andrea and Asim said. I think this omni-channel, multiple, let's say, avenues of advertising gaming is absolutely true. So at Service Plan Middle East, our whole USP, our value proposition, if you will, revolves around integration. So we have the media team, we have the strategy team, the creative team, and for a lot of campaigns that we do, it's integrated among all of them. And that goes for a lot of the gaming campaigns that we do as well. So just like the guys over here said about that you need to be in A and B and C, that's kind of the approach that we head in as well. We'll come up with something cool for the brand, something that matches the brand's value, and then we can go and do maybe some influencer work, something in-game, like Andrea was saying, and then maybe a bunch of other things that include media as well. So that's kind of how we usually approach it and how the agency kind of differentiates itself when it comes to gaming.
Now, sticking with you, Helmi, just maybe taking your sort of professional hat off, have you seen a brand in this space, you know, that you think have been doing something very interesting or innovative that you can sort of mention as an example?
I think globally, yes. Regionally, I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to this stuff, especially because it's my work. So I would say regionally, I would really like to see brands level up a little bit more. Globally, I would say, especially in the luxury space, which for a lot of us might seem a bit weird, luxury and gaming, but gamers have a lot of disposable income to spend on this kind of stuff. I mean, it's all white-collar workers like myself right now who will be working in marketing agencies or whatever else, and I can actually afford these luxury things. So to answer your question, I might go to actually Gucci and Louis Vuitton. They do a lot of stuff when it comes to gaming. LV, they brand the NBA trophies and a lot of traditional sports, but they also do a lot of esports work as well. That kind of really fits the brand. Regionally, I might have to be a bit biased and go with one of our clients because I've seen them do a little bit of cool work, and that's Abdulatif Jamil, aka the Toyota dealer in Saudi. I think they were the ones to actually really level up in the region, do some really cool stuff, especially at last year's Gamers 8 in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia.
And Andrew, you can't say Pizza Hut. I know you want to, but tell me of another brand that you've seen do some cool stuff that you're like, that's good.
Within the FMCG industry, actually, there are a couple of campaigns that caught my eye. Gillette and Nivea. So if you've seen Nivea's campaign, essentially 42% of the Saudi market is female gamers, right? And they started this really cool campaign called Girls Got Game, which build a space specifically for female gamers to exchange ideas, gaming tactics, and even skincare tips. And similarly, Gillette as well. Most of their audience is largely millennials and people who might not connect with the brand early on, especially with new age media. So they also had an insight that, if a person uses the razor first, they will sort of stick with it for the rest of their life, right? So they partnered up with a gaming peripheral company, Razer. So you have to appreciate the pun, Razer, with a limited edition, super cool green razor, where every 13 to 17-year-old wanted to use it. And I think those were pretty great campaigns.
Interesting. And Asa, how about you? What have you seen that sort of caught your eye that you thought?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as an independent agency, right, I think one thing which we all have as our defense is insights and community. And someone who, what would be a great gaming campaign is something which would resonate with a very deep gamer insight, right? I think KFC's they actually partnered with hardware providers to create consoles which are anti-grease. So you could actually create, I thought that was very interesting. That was a very deep gamer insight about, hey, you can't eat chicken when you're playing, right? So it sort of gets greasy, the console gets greasy. So you actually create something which is an anti-grease console. That was interesting. And I probably also talk about what we did for Dubai Chambers. And Dubai Chambers, in that sense, would be the most unlikely candidate to get into gaming. But what we did for them was they're working on this campaign called Create Apps, where they wanted to find the most talented coders in town and support them, create an incubator for app developers. Now, that's something which was possible in traditional media. You cannot put in your interest categories when you do ads, you can't say, hey, I want to find app coders, right? So what we did was we tried to sort of score through unlimited gaming streams, and we found this guy who actually said that, you know what, and this was a guy who's 25 years old, and he went through a heart bypass at 25 years, right? And that's pretty crazy. And we found his stream, and he said, you know what, and he has a massive he has a massive following on game streams. And he said, I would love someone to create an app to remind me to take medicines for my heart bypass, like after my post-heart bypass surgery. So that was the point. And what we did was we said, you know what, we're going to contact him and create an app which would help him remind to take medicines to go through heart bypass. And this guy then told his followers, and these guys then became part of that Dubai Chambers program. So you could use gaming in ways which traditional media could never even do, because it's so linear in terms of interest categories. And I thought that's interesting. I think any gaming campaign is amazing if you can find real deep gaming insights, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, that gamification. Now, sticking with you when you talk about insights, now we know gamers, they're a tough bunch. If you get it wrong, they're going to hate you forevermore, and they've got this close-knit community.
Absolutely.
And we talk about authenticity, but in gaming, you've just got to be that little bit extra authentic.
True.
How do you do that?
I think there's a lot to lose than to when you do in gaming. You're absolutely right on that. And I think it's all about understanding what the community for the gaming, the particular game wants. And it's not a single community. And people tend to miss that because a League of Legends community is very different from a Valorant community. So it's very important to go within that game, even within that, the real estate of the game, and find out what are those moments that you want to be a part of, and what's relevant for the brand. Because sometimes you could just say, hey, I want to be in these 5 games, but 2 of them would not even be relevant to you. So it's all about understanding and actually mapping through the game, the gameplay, and through the game stream, and trying to understand what the kind of people who exist within the game. That's what we try to do.
And Andrea, for you, where have you seen most traction? Which games, and where would you think maybe you might want to venture into?
So for us at Pizza Hut, it actually depends on every brand, right? And what's true to you, what's your business objective. For example, if you're a gaming peripheral company, you'd probably want to address hardcore gamers through esports. But for Pizza Hut, we're trying to reach most of our people, our target audience, with as much as impact we can have. So that's where casual gaming is the sort of forum we'd want to venture in, and many such titles like Fortnite sort of work for us, because you're not just reaching the influencers, not just reaching the 100 players who are competing, but also their audience. So it honestly depends on what feels true to you as a brand.
And Helmi, you're an active gamer, so what ticks your box? What is something that would be authentic to you?
Oh, okay. I don't really get asked many questions from the side of the consumer, so I'm trying to put myself in that headspace now. Man, it's tough. We really are a tough bunch. I think with gamers, because a lot of them are on the internet in perpetuity, let's say, they kind of understand how certain things work. And so for a lot of marketing audiences, maybe they won't really kind of understand, okay, marketing budget, okay, they're spending it on this, they're doing this. But for gamers, they know this, and they know you're out to get them. And we are a skeptical bunch, absolutely. So I think what ticks that box has to be some sort of authenticity that comes from the brand's values. If you can find something that overlaps with gamers' values, something like an insight, like Asim was saying. I agreed a lot with you today, by the way, but I do disagree on one thing. I think you do need gamers on the team. I agree. I think it's an absolute must. A lot of the cool ideas that we come up with come from gamers on the team, on my team, and in the wider agency. And to understand each specific community and their wants and their needs and what really ticks the box for them, yeah, I think it's an absolute necessity. So usually, to answer your question, it will be a value that's mutual between the brand and the specific community.
And just a follow-up question to all 3 of you, I guess. Should you focus on one game or 2 games? Should you be careful about how you spread yourself, how thinly across the gaming community?
So, if I can go on that, I think I'm an independent agency owner, and I'm looking at it from a P&L rather than from a reach point of view. I think you should go in games where there are significant communities which could actually have an impact on brands. And some games don't, and some games do. So, but at the same time, if you even decide to get into certain games, like for example, a strategy in Roblox, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, is going to be extremely different from what you're going to do on Valorant, right? So, and the audience is different. The kind of people who play Valorant are very different from people who play Roblox. So, I think each one of them is a social media platform of its own, right? So it depends. For example, on Roblox, I would probably look at getting more about connecting with connecting with influencers, content creators who are already big on Roblox, and trying to let them create something rather than an internal agency person, even though how big they are on gaming, trying to create something. Something on probably on Valorant or League of Legends, I'll probably not go the route of sort of content creation campaign, but I'll probably look at their esports tournaments and try to do something there. So it's just about trying to choose games which are going to be big in the region, and that's another big problem because we really don't know how big a certain game is in the Middle East. There's not enough data to actually say that. So yeah, I think it's about choosing what would perhaps be more, what would be big in the region, what would be a critical mass in terms of audience, but also what would be a monetize, as an agency, what would be good to monetize from a brand point of view, if that makes sense.
Andrea and Helmi, can you expand on that? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So to just add on both your points, when you mentioned authenticity is key, and it's essential to be a gamer, to sort of be immersive in that experience and understand the universe. Within our own team, we have a gamer who's a Gen Z, and our agency, Power League Gaming, also helps us with these insights, where based on our objective, essentially at Pizza Hut, one, we want to reach more people, tap into Gen Z as well as get ROI. So within that community, there are certain titles that work depending on which stage we are. At the product launch, for an individual category, we went with single-player games. But when you're looking at engagement and you want to reach as many people, multiplayer games work. So it's largely depending on the objective for us, and we've done it all. Like we had a Valorant esports tournament as well, and we keep doing live streams and a lot of content as well. So for us as a brand, since pizza is so universal, it's essential for us to reach as many people as possible.
Just sticking with you, you mentioned ROI. So what sort of ROI, we're looking at here when it comes to gaming?
So that's actually a very good question.
It's a great question, actually.
Because we did measure it. So essentially, we run marketing mix modeling studies to look at our entire spectrum of ATL, digital, gaming, to see what sort of ROI we see, right? Now, and we also measure it to the T, where for every game title, for every activation, may it be live stream, a certain influencer, a content piece, we can measure the ROI against it, mapping it by a sales decomposition study. So if our brand's average ROI is anywhere between 5 to 7, for gaming it's close to 50. So it's like the numbers are just incredible, and because when you're connecting with gamers, you're literally being authentic. You're entering their world and integrating the fabric of gaming within your brand, right? So you're creating a deeper connection where the engagement is organic and the loyalty is just multifold. So our ROI is actually pretty good, and you can measure it to many studies.
Some you seem to...
I have a point of view on this. I think a large amount of times gaming gives vanity ROI. That's my opinion, right? A lot of us look at gaming as a great place to be from a cultural point of view. But it's very important to see if there are options which would probably provide solutions on all levels of the funnel. Right now, a large amount of work which was shown till now, it's great, cute work from a top of the funnel point of view, right? But I think what we really focused on is how can you create gaming journeys which could give you top of the funnel awareness, mid funnel engagement, and bottom funnel conversions. And that's where game streaming wins head on across different products. I don't think for brands, gaming is purely an esports play. That's my opinion. Gaming is more a media play. When I say media play, I don't even mean ads, because 30.8% penetration rates of ad block in Saudi, 30% penetration rates of ad block in UAE. You're really bad when you're doing ads on mid-roll or B-roll on Twitch. What you really need to think about is, can I work with game streamers to look at awareness, engagement, and conversions? And that's what we deliver on. So yes, absolutely. When you look at ROI, you look at awareness, but also look at how many people actually convert to buy things on your e-commerce platform. And that's what game streaming, and we are able to deliver through our in-streaming, the sort of game streaming marketplace technology. So that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely, that conversion. Helmi, how can you expand on what they've just said?
I think over the past few years of working in the space, I've kind of seen a pattern of, let's say, two different ROI-esque models that brands should use. I think one of them is definitely a media play, and that makes a lot of sense. It's a bit of a short-term investment. You see awareness, you see positive affinity, and that kind of stuff. And that is for the more general, let's say, gaming bubble. I always imagine I'm using both hands because I'm mic'd up. But I always tell brands the exact same thing. It's like this big gaming bubble, and esports is a very much smaller one in there. But they're a lot more hardcore and a lot more passionate. So I completely agree. The gaming bubble is the play. But if you want something that's long-term investment, where like there's very much a future purchase consideration, especially if maybe you're an automotive company, that's where the long-term play has to come in, where you get into esports and get really down to the nitty-gritty of the passionate fans and communities. But for the short-term ones, I think the ROIs that have been honestly probably the most useful for us at Service Plan have not been that quantitative actually. They've been more on the qualitative side. So something like positive affinity, something not so much as leads generated, but rather future purchase consideration. It's things like that that we believe that gaming can really contribute, because it's such a passionate hobby for a lot of these people. So if you really want to get them involved and want to get them to like your brand, you should really make a long-term play rather than let's spend a little bit on like a 2-month influencer program and that's it,
Excellent. So we know, I think we can all agree, gaming is a very sort of exciting space. What excites you about this region? And I mean, we hear of Saudi and the high penetration, female gamers. Is it that driving, or is it what one thing actually really makes you excited about just the capacity and the growth potential for gaming in this region? Let's start with Andrew in the middle, please.
The MENA region is a very young region. In fact, more than 60% of our potential audience are gamers. And the gaming industry itself has more than 85 million gamers with close to a revenue potential of 5 billion. So it's literally one of the most emerging marketplaces with the Middle East Gamescoms. So many service communities where people are getting together to engage on gaming, to share ideas, and it's literally growing as like a bond in terms of people getting together, which is super unique.
So how about you? What really excites you? What's sort of getting you out of bed in the morning in the gaming space?
I think a few things. Let's talk about esports first, right? Esports started because a certain game developers, publishers wanted to grow their community. Esports didn't start because of the fact that they wanted to create a profitable business out of it. So that now is completely shifted to the Middle East. So all the big esports investments are happening in the region. And if I ask people who are from the marketing space right now, most of them would tell us that the decisions for gaming are not made in the region. They're made outside the region, right? That's going to change, which is interesting. So a lot of marketing managers who are in the Middle East are going to make decisions strategically for a brand, which is a global brand here. That's interesting because that gives us a voice in the room. The second important thing is game streamers. Now, let's say, for example, let's take Twitch. Game streamers who are in Twitch that's a very rapidly growing bunch in the Middle East. But the community support for Twitch in the region is extremely scant, right? So what a lot of game streamers do is, while they want to pursue it as professional careers, but they don't get the support from the platform. So there is a space, and I look at it as an opportunity. There's a space for a company or companies to come in and actually give them that support. So you could actually become a talent management for game streamers. That's a huge opportunity. Esports, marketing, strategic decisions are going to be made in the region. That's an interesting opportunity. And third thing, I think, for example, by the way, the Roblox team, we're talking about Roblox right now. It's a team of less than 20 people globally, right? That's Roblox for you. So imagine them, and unless you are, let's say, Pizza Hut or KFC, no one's going to talk to you for Roblox. Truth of the matter, no one's gonna help you geo-target Middle East for Roblox. So while it looks really nice to see great content coming from Roblox, but there's this opportunity for representing Roblox in the Middle East region being an agency, being a media representation company. So these are the opportunities which exist with esports, streamer support, media representation for a large amount of games in the region.
Did you say Roblox just 20 people globally?
Correct.
It says
Exactly.
Skeleton staff.
Try mailing them and getting an answer in a day. Try it, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Fascinating. And how about you?
I think I'll probably answer this twofold: personal, professional. Personally, for sure, it's giving back to the communities that gave me a lot of good times and actually giving some value back. I think that's what drives me to create cool things rather than let's say very mundane or something that gamers would take a look at and they glance away. But professionally, I mean, man, we live in such an exciting time in the GCC in general, where a lot of these industries get expedited to growth. With gaming, I mean, you can extrapolate, and it's probably even more expedited, and the growth is crazy, especially because of all the investment in Saudi. I mean, we work at Service Plan with the Esports World Cup and the Saudi Esports Federation, and the things they do and the scale at which they do it is absolutely ridiculous. But even then, with all these big amounts of gaming audiences in Saudi, still not that many of them actually consume esports. And so not many of them have yet been turned into that next level of passionate audience. And I think that's probably what excites me the most, is that, yeah, it's growing and it'll continue to grow, but actually it's going to probably continue to grow at this expedited rate that we'll continue seeing. And that means more opportunities for all of us, guys. So, yeah.
Good news all round. Okay, so I'm all out of questions, so we're going to open the floor to anybody who has a question for our esteemed panelists. Please raise your hand. We have one already there in the middle.
Hi, my name is Namir Dawish. I'm CTO for Nasser Sports. Thank you very much. It was quite informative and useful panel so far. My question is to Andrea. I've been in gaming for quite a while, and from both distribution and esports, and we've been in communication with a lot of brands. Something you mentioned really provoked me, which is the fact that as Pizza Hut, as a brand, you are interested with an 18-plus game, which in our heads normally used to be a no-go. I'm obviously referring now the game name escapes my head. Sorry, Resident Evil. I would like to hear more about that, because from numbers and community numbers globally, something like GTA normally rally up the biggest numbers. However, because it's GTA, because of the controversial nature of the game, everybody avoid marketing around it. So I would like to hear more about that experience.
Absolutely. So we were disruptive, and when we used Resident Evil as a game title, we were trying to disrupt the category in terms of, like I said, pizza as a category is a sharing category, and if you look at KFC, Burger King, they cater to the individual market. So if we're moving from the category norm into a different market, our choice of marketing also had to be different. In fact, our overall campaign was not for sharing, and in our region, sharing is a very big thing. So to be bold enough and say not for sharing was a start in itself. So essentially, all our marketing choices in terms of games also gave us those insights that this could create that sort of talkability, virality, where people would not only just engage with the game, but also link Pizza Hut to the entire experience. And in fact, that was our best campaign in 2023 so far.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way. Namir, I'd just like to add to that very quickly, because it's actually really, really cool what you guys did with that game title. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a bit, 18 plus and stuff. But I think maybe just what would be helpful for the audience here today, especially because there's so many games out there and so many genres and so many different types of titles. But I think for marketeers, a really good way to think about it would be to boil it down just to two types. And there's the consistent type of games that people are playing throughout the years. Something like, we probably have all heard of Call of Duty or Counter-Strike. So those are the multiplayer games that will continue, and that base of audience will continue. And then there's like these more linear story narrative-driven games that will have spikes. And so a game will launch, a lot of people will play it, and then it'll die off. And so I think what was cool that you guys did is that you took advantage of one of these peaks, You launched a product along a game and kind of formed that connection. But I thought that would just be useful, add a little bit of an insight.
And
Thank you.
Just adding up to what Helmi just said about the fact that we did that with the launch of the FIFA 22 World Cup game, right? Like, so when Football World Cup was happening, we did very similar stuff with an FMCG brand. We actually took the launch of their product and did a launch with a game which launched at the same time and then continued it through there. So I completely agree with what he's saying about sort of combining a sort of an always-on game along with a peak and triggers and sort of game. I think it's a perfect strategy in that sense.
Thanks for your question. We've probably got time for one more question. If someone has one, please don't be shy, put up your hand and we can ask the panel before we say goodbye. Brand safety, brand suitability. Helmi? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Violence, blood.
May I?
It's a good question. Brand safety and how you play it safe.
Thank you very much. Can I ask what brand you come from? Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, let me kind of tackle this in a few different parts here. I think it's a very valid concern. You're directly associating your brand with maybe something that you don't want to be associating with. And perhaps you're targeting people who are under the age of 18, 17, 16, depending on the country you're in. So there's two parts to this question. Let me talk about the age one first, because I think that one's faster. A lot of the brands that we actually work with are not directly doing that, and you're not really supposed to be doing that, right? But I think, and you guys said it a few times too, by the way, on the panel about Gen Z, but gamers are not Gen Z. A lot of gamers are Gen Z, but actually the majority in the GCC are 25 to 34, which are millennial, which is my age group. So that's number one, and most brands tend to target that demographic rather than 12 to 18, let's say. That's the first question. I would say the second question, or the first part of your question, there are some ways that you can kind of circumvent this issue, because it is a very serious one. One of the ways is that a lot of influencers, when they play these, let's say, over 18 games, there's either a setting in the game that will lower the violence, lower the profanity, all this stuff, or they create their own custom server, that's what we call it. There's one for GTA 5, as Namir mentioned, that actually his organization sometimes uses to promote brands, where it's completely brand safe and free of any, let's say, over 18 content. So there's a few ways to circumvent this problem, but it is, I do agree with you, a very real one. Absolutely, I agree. Maybe someone would like to add to that, please.
Oh yes, absolutely. Great question. I was here at the breakfast briefing 8 months ago, and this is the same question which was asked. So the fact is, there are two levels in which you could operate, right? Like let's say Mentos. We saw a campaign by Mentos. They would probably be better off doing a Roblox campaign, which has relatively less abuse and profanity. The second aspect is what we do is we have a technology which helps us embed campaigns on streamers when they are playing games and when they are actually broadcasting, right? We have a filter, and of course it's work in progress. It's not something which is perfectly optimized yet, but what we really do is we block campaigns which go into streamers when we are able to detect when they use abuses, or when a certain game, for example, if there was no abuse or profanity in Middle East from a point of filtration, all campaigns would run on Valorant, because Valorant is the biggest community here, no doubt about it. But there you go. So, but the fact is that brands don't like to be associated with Valorant, because I'm sure Helmi will agree, it's extremely violent as a game, right? So the fact is that you need to also, the solutions lie from a fact of, from us, from making a conscious decision to associate with a certain game, but the solution also lies in finding a technology route to it by finding by creating those filters which would ensure that certain games are not part of the campaign purely because of this aspect. And it's fairly more complicated even at a streamer level, because how do you in an 8-hour stream, how do you find out if a person is actually abusing, right? It's not about the game itself. And that's tough, and that's where you really need technology, because you can't have a human community management guy sitting there and trying to say, hey, I'm not going to run the campaign there. You need a technology aspect to it as well.
Yeah, just one more point on this question, if you don't mind, Andrea, let me go ahead. I think a lot of business leaders in this room would probably tell you there's also no gain without risk. And we think of these big, successful marketing brands, Burger King, Duolingo, and they do all this crazy stuff, right? I think for you to also reap the rewards of maybe certain communities and certain marketing ROIs, as Justin was saying earlier, you have to also be a bit, adventurous. And exactly. And you can't get that investment without creating some sort of risk. So it's part of it.
Andrea, please give us the final word on your thoughts on brand safety, Pizza Hut, and...
You stole what I was going to say. This is no.
Great minds.
It has to be a risk, right? I mean, at Pizza Hut, most of our audience, we've run several studies, and to some aspect, our communication has been so standard that they've probably found it boring. So without creating that buzz, being bold, you can't really get brands to recall you. I mean, get audiences to recall your brand. So I would just say the risk was worth it, but you need to be bold.
Brilliant. Okay, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up now. So sorry, maybe afterwards you could ask the question. So I want to thank my esteemed panelists, Asim, Andrea, and Halim, for joining me today. So please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we swap places, and panel 1 is replaced by panel 2, which is on the topic of deepening connections, elevating loyalty in the digital age. As we know, consumer attention spans are getting shorter than ever. I know mine is, and loyalty is up for grabs. So how do brands cut through the noise to foster genuine long-term connections? Now, this panel will highlight the evolving landscape of loyalty strategies with a nod to how gamification can serve as a complementary tool to enhance customer engagement and promote brand loyalty. Our panel will explore the essence of what truly drives customer loyalty today, going beyond traditional rewards to forge genuine relationships and community users. Before I welcome our panel onto the stage, I'd like to play a short video from the panel sponsors, Fusion 5. Okay, very cool video. So can I welcome firstly our moderator, who is Rami Magani, who is the Client Relationship Director at Fusion 5, Siddharth Sivaprakesh, Head of Marketing and Brand, Home Center, part of Landmark Group, Ramzi Atat, who is Head of Marketing and PR, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa for Lotus Cars, and Samantha Billingham, who is the Managing Partner at Evolution Group. Please join us on the stage.
Morning. Thanks for joining. Thanks, campaign, for making it happen after all the weather-related challenges this week. I think I echo Justin's sentiment. About a week ago, we were supposed to have this panel, and I would have started off by thanking everyone who kayaked or swam here, but I think that icebreaker has outlived itself at this point. But what hasn't outlived itself and is far from expiry is the topic of attention. And when we talk about attention, I'm not talking just about the buzzword where you roll your eyes, you've heard it a million times before, but we're talking about attention and how that transcends and connects with loyalty and connects with consumers and those pillars. So really excited to share that topic with a panel that are from as diverse a professional background as the topic is. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Rami Mghanni. I'm the Client Relationships Director at Fusion 5. I think over 18 years, I've seen loyalty transcend from the subway coupons to what it is today, and I'm really excited to dissect that with you guys as well. Sid?
Hi, everyone. My name is Siddharth. I head marketing and brand for Home Center for the region. I'd like to thank Asim for the previous panel. I mean, all of you, but I think Asim helped break it down for an old-timer like me. If I had to tell you the games I played, a lot of you probably wouldn't even have heard of them. Not an avid gamer, but Need for Speed, anyone?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I've been at Home Center for a little over 5 years right now. I've been in the region for over 20, come from an creative advertising background. That's me in a nutshell.
Hello, my name is Ramzi. So I look after marketing and PR for Lotus Cars in Middle East, Asia Pacific, and Africa. We got some tough topics today. As you said, the buzzword or the word saying engagement and attention span has been used and reused so many times. We'll try to keep it simple and add value to the conversation.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam Billingham. I'm the managing partner at Evolution, all things gaming for about 10 years, so much so that I've actually decided to jump out of the corporate world, and we actually now have our own business focused on specifically solutions for brands within the gaming space. And thank you for inviting us.
Great. I think we can then kick off delving into this topic. And Sid, I'd like to start off with you, primarily looking at the retail space, and especially with your omnichannel experience. So how have the likes of Home Center adapted their communication strategies to address this short attention span of today's digital consumers? And perhaps you would also have some examples of something that you've done at Home Center, any campaigns that have successfully captured and sustained this consumer attention.
I'll take a stab at that. So yes, definitely battling with shorter attention spans, all of us in the room, I'm sure. But that's been a problem that's been coming around. I mean, just the amount of stimulation and information that everybody has to deal with every day. But I have a slightly different view on this. For us, longer formats of content have actually worked really well. I mean, we do shorter formats, but I think at the end of it, if you have a good story to tell and you have a nice way of telling it, people will listen and people will tune in and be engaged. I think there's a general hatred for ads online. None of us want to be served ads. And that's only increasing with Gen Zs and the gaming generation. But it's really about entertaining them in the bargain. So if you have a message to say, it might as well be entertaining, it might as well have an element of humor or emotion. We're still dealing with human beings, luckily. So I think keep it simple. It's not about trying to be gimmicky. It's not short term. It's about if you have a really good message, craft it well, and there will be people who will give you a chance and actually view it. And we have quite a few examples from some of our campaigns, social impact campaigns and more commercially oriented campaigns. If I look at our last Ramadan campaign for 2024, we had a hero film asset which was over a minute long, had view-through rates of over 10%. I'm talking about full video views of over 5%, which was quite heartening to see. We obviously did cut downs and edits and things like that, but the entire ecosystem that we created, we did an event with content creators and influencers. The whole space was created in a way that they could create content on the go. That really helped us a lot. As someone mentioned about influencers in the first session, I think it's sometimes it's seen as a necessary evil, but it's also about having and picking the right kind of content creators to work with you, which have a good brand fit, so that then there's a level of credibility and authenticity coming out from a third party talking about your brand. So those are a few of the ways that we've actually looked at tackling attention span and how we actually grab eyeballs online.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about it still being human, because the human element obviously is what's driving this attention and this loyalty. And and I think consumers are intelligent, and they will call you out on anything that's too gimmicky. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. Obviously, this plays out differently from industry to one other, category to another. So, which brings me to you, Ramzi, on when we alternatively look at more niche or more luxury categories and those spaces, we'd probably expect a different approach. So for players that enjoy those distinct brand identities that appeal to niche markets, how do you balance maintaining that identity, but while still expanding your customer base without alienating your existing customer base?
You just summarized our most difficult challenge as a brand. Not to make it a plug-in about Lotus, but quickly just to explain to you how and what we deal with every day. Lotus is a 76-year-old brand that has won 9 world championship, Formula 1 championships, and so on. So very big, long heritage. And they were always known for producing small volume, pure sports cars that you buy only if you want to go to the track, even no air conditioning, no power steering, you just, no automatic, you just buy to drive it. Now, consumers, even those people who buy or still want those cars, they also want SUVs, you want something that is user-friendly, you want navigation, you want screens, and so on. So Lotus has evolved to a more modern product. With that in mind, it's very hard sometimes to cater to both. So the purists who still want that old image of the car that they've bought, and the new people that you want to expand to because they will buy your new product because times have changed. And I won't say there's a secret recipe. It's just that we try to have something for everyone, and we try to explain our journey as a brand. So we always embrace where we came from. We reassure that our DNA is still in those products, and where we are in the present and where we're going in the future. So this is where we tend to keep on communicating to, again, bank on what we have as heritage, but at the same time say we are evolving just like the industry is evolving. We are at an unprecedented time in the automotive industry. So the only other era I can compare this to is the 1900s, where everybody had a horse and a carriage, and someone called Carl Benz came in a car that ran on an internal engine, and they thought he was crazy. And then 30 years later, it was all cars on the road and no horses anymore. So we're at that kind of a pivotal switch. It's important we see it as an industry. Consumers, not all of them see it. So it's very tricky but important to show them that we are who we are, but we are evolving with the time, and try to explain that change to them. But to your point about attention span, and nothing more honestly to add to what you said, it's giving content that is clear, concise. They have a short attention span. We're not going to change it. Just give them something good within that short attention span, and deliver on your key messages quickly, and give them something that they like, that is shareable, that is engageable. Don't hit them with an ad. People resist ads by nature.
Yeah, and I'll stick with you on that because that's the perfect segue into talking about where we're moving forward down in terms of the funnel, because we're talking about attention. And obviously mobile technology has provided key opportunities in this space. So with technologies panning out on social media platforms, what I would ask you in this case is that they're obviously key digital platforms, they're key to digital marketing strategies, so with social media. In your experience, how have your brands, or any brands we've worked with, utilized these platforms more about fostering a sense of community and engaging consumers on a personal level? Because we always talk about engagement with social, but we don't talk too much about community. So how have your brands fostered this?
I'll give you an example, again, straight to examples, but not from a brand I work with. Look at Porsche. If you look at all of their social media, it's all UGC. They've almost gone 100% UGC. If you have nice Porsche content, they will put it out for you, and I don't think they even plan a content calendar. So, and Porsche is amongst the strongest brands in the world. So I don't think we're strong enough as Lotus to go there and go full UGC because there's a lot of key messages about the brand and the product that people don't know about. So there's a lot to explain. But once we are known and strong enough, make it all about the community. And one thing to note, when we think about niche or high-end or luxury products, we think these people are rich and they want to buy the car and they want to be treated differently. You know what? They're on their Instagram 2-3 hours a day, just like you. They're following the same people. They're doing the same things. They're not always looking into stock markets and so on. So, and they want to feel that they belong to some sort of community when they buy a car. So it's not that different. You have to find them in different places. They are not available in the same locations as mass audiences are, but their consumption would be surprisingly similar in the way they consume media. So treat them just like everybody else.
Yeah, and I think with niche and luxury brands, communities can be something that can be looked upon. But I guess in terms of retail, it takes a whole different attitude. Of course, presence on social media is extremely prominent, but in your case, how does that play out? How does social media foster that sense of community for a brand like Home Center?
So I think UGC was a point that was touched on, and I think that's huge even for us in retail, especially in home retail. We try to foster that as much as possible. But I think with us, how we've used social media to really foster a sense of community has been through a lot of our social impact campaigns. We've done a few of those in the last 5 years, and that's really, really helped. In fact, currently we're running something, we're partnered with Channel 4, the Channel 4 network across the UAE. And it was beautiful because given the unprecedented weather we've had in the UAE over the last week and the aftermath of it, as a home brand, it was prime because we needed to get out there and see how we could help the community. Social platforms were definitely something that supported radio because it just gave us more reach and more scale. But we partnered with the radio network to actually just give out furniture and vouchers to people who could show us the amount of damage that they'd endured. And it's the least we could do at a time like this. The whole country was banding together, standing in solidarity with the community. I think these are opportunities that retail brands really have to just create and foster a sense of goodwill within the community itself. So luckily we had a prime example right now. Not a plug, but it's actually currently happening.
Yeah, and just sort of giving that sense of looking out for each other would definitely foster that as well. But maybe now what we can, in this case, if we dig more into the intricacies of loyalty and how it's tackled, and throwing in how we use new tech, gamification solutions, etc., to build those deeper engagements, and that's where, Sam, I'd come to you, because I know that you've worked closely with brands to close these gaps and to tap into these layers of forward thinking. So from your perspective as a tech provider, what are the most effective digital tools and technologies currently available, whether it comes with gamification or AI in that sense, that can help brands to deepen customer loyalty? And have you seen any examples as well, or conducted any campaigns that you can use as a point of example to that?
Thank you. I think there's a few things. Is firstly, all get excited about the word AI, new technologies, but really at the heart is, what do people want? How can you make their lives easier? How do you enhance an experience? And if you even separate loyalty is around a consistent positive experience with the brand. And it's not something that is a once-off transaction. It's something that's really built over time. And so you mentioned it, like the power of not only long format video, but the power of storytelling and how you weave in either loyalty programs or some type of gamification is really just about enhancing the story that you want to tell to a user, to have that emotional connection so that you are not just a transaction, but they advocate for you and they really lean into your brand, and your brand is part of their whether it be their everyday life or a once-off purchase. I think what's really important is if you look at gamification specifically, it's not about the gimmick, it's about what is the real value to the user. And the one thing I know, the really power that gamification brings is everything is about the user. It's user-centric, it's permission-based. No one can engage in a gamification with kind of leaning back. You don't just stumble on it, because if you're not actively engaged, whether it's in a rewards program or an actual game, you're going to die. And I think that's one of the main kind of motivations if we look at why people play games. I think over and above that, it's really important to recognize that AI from a data and personalization perspective can obviously enhance a user's experience with a brand, but for people in this room, media effectiveness is ultimately what we're judged on. And as much as attention is a bit of a loose word that maybe gets thrown around, the technology behind measuring attention through leading businesses such as Adelaide, Lumen, Amplified Intelligence, we're just starting. And if you think of where topics like viewability were a few years ago, ultimately, if you don't have a user's attention, you can't build your brand. And if you don't have value to your brand, how can you expect anybody to be loyal to you? And, you know, we talk about brand loyalty in terms of existing users, but this room is changing daily. Like, how do you bring new people into a category to actually get them passionate about your product? And again, I think gamification brings a lot of opportunity to engage in deeper storytelling, but not to be distracted by the gimmicks. It's what is the real value to the user.
Absolutely. And I think, what about if we look at it from a brand standpoint? So given the increased recognition of home center, especially maybe now more recent with what you mentioned, what are the unique challenges that you face in maintaining customer loyalty in this digital first world? And do any of these solutions provide a way for you to evolve your strategy to meet these challenges?
Interesting you ask us that, because we exist in a category that has very low brand loyalty. So just the home industry is a category. None of us shop for our homes from just one store or one brand, right? And then that's par for the course for us. But I think one of the objectives we have is price is hygiene. Differentiating on product is getting even more challenging by the day. So I think it has to be about the experience you offer your customers, and it has to be one part initiative to get people to love your brand outside of just what you sell. And that's really where you have to try and get in and take the rational out of their, experience. They're not coming to you just for a rational cause, but because they sort of identify with the brand in some way, slightly deeper, and that's long term. You can't create that in the short and the middle term. It is a long-term strategy. It is something that, and to me, that's what brand loyalty really brings. It's about how you offer them consistency, day in and day out, and I think it's a highly underrated attribute for a brand. For us, gamification, new technology, all of it helps reach people in unique ways. I firmly believe that the medium can't be the idea. People may argue, but you can use that for shock value and impact initially, but it loses steam very quickly. No matter what the medium or what the channel, you've got to tailor your strategy to ensure that you're reaching people through that medium in the most effective, relevant way possible. So it's really about how you bring this into your media mix. For us, gamification per se hasn't really been too big. We do gamify some of our promotions and some of our tactics and activations. We're a largely brick and mortar business. While online is growing considerably, especially in Saudi Arabia, we're still largely brick and mortar business. And how we can enthrall and activate customers within the store is actually really important still. Right. So gamification offline is still quite interesting for us.
Yeah, and rather than as a method of pushing footfall, it's more about engaging in the moment and standing out from the clutter of the multiple players in that category.
Absolutely. And we've done a few of those in the past, and we will continue to.
Right. And Ramzi, in your case, being part of brands that are heritage brands, we can call them, renowned for having a quite strong heritage, is there a way to leverage that heritage while also innovating in the digital space and in a way that you can attract and retain this quote-unquote modern consumer?
I mean, being a heritage brand does not mean that your consumers are old school and they don't consume what everybody is, which is social media or digital. So again, back to my previous point, I think that part, so to simplify advertising, right? Let's just go back to basics. So you have a target audience that you identify with first, second, third party data and research, and then you zero in and you decide this is who I want to go after. You have your channel to hit them, which is in this case digital most of the time because it's very much quantitative and measurable and so on. So you can understand or you can decide how to hit that customer audience. And then you have the message. The message is the creative, obviously. So this is the tricky part when it comes to mixing between heritage or what we call them legacy clients or customers and your new clients that you're trying to attract. And most of this play and the challenge comes within the creative itself. So it has to be a mix of all, again, in Lotus's example, to show that the DNA of the car is still there. It's still a pure performance car with very high engineering prowess and so on. But at the same time, it has been modernized in line with the demands of the modern consumer. And it has future plans, and the brand will stay ahead and in the game for a long time to give the consumer that sense of trust and confidence in the brand. How do you mix all three with the creative? It's very challenging. You can't do it sometimes in one creative. Social media allows you to communicate with the customer maybe 3-4 times a week, so you can rotate a mix of this is what we did in 1969, this is the latest product that's coming up in 2 months, and this is where we're going to be in 10 years. And then mix it all together with one overarching strategy, just to say that this is all under the umbrella of Lotus and the Lotus DNA and what we are and what we do. But again, so back to your question, how do we target heritage or legacy customers? I would argue that most of the customers are digitally very similar in how they consume. So you change the creative. This is the most of the work will happen on the creative, plus obviously the consumer targeting with the cookies and so on.
Right, and this can eventually also build up to the next topic of the next phase of loyalty, and a very specific one, which is the loyalty programs that brands are finding themselves integrated into. And basically, this is going to be a question for all three of you, but taking an approach into gamification, which we touched upon, and obviously has become a hot topic of conversation, especially with regards to building engagement, and it's being used to increasingly foster loyalty in its own way and in different ones. So maybe Sam, starting with you, could you share any insights on how gamification specifically can be integrated into loyalty programs, and what are the potential pitfalls that brands should be aware of when trying to integrate gamification into loyalty programs?
Sure. So I think, firstly, why we play is such an important thing to remember. You know, people are looking for a sense of accomplishment. We're looking for a bit of a dopamine hit. You could just be wanting to be in flow state. I mean, how many of us probably play the most simple game? My favorite is a game called I Love You. Really, it's you're half brain dead when you're playing it, but you're in a state of slight progression, but at the same time really challenging yourself. And I think if we remember first the kind of psychological reasons why people play games, it allows you to tailor your storytelling to really engage with your consumer deeply. And I think there's a really, really awesome example, and there's been a lot of discussion about Roblox today, which I'm thrilled about, is Roblox have recently, I shouldn't say Roblox, Hilton have recently done an execution on Roblox with Paris Hilton. I mean, I love Paris. She was my, that's how old I am. She was hot property when I was in my teens. And Paris has this little neighborhood that she's launched inside the Roblox experience called Silverland. And basically users go into Silverland and you can go into the lobby of a Hilton hotel. And there's lots of obstacles and challenges where you actually earn points through the Hilton Honors Points program. Now imagine, and again, I think the misconceptions around the Roblox audience potentially also need to be addressed, but here is a way for you to engage with future travelers, and in a way getting them to engage with the brand and use their loyalty and rewards points that they're earning in Roblox on things like a hotel upgrade or free Wi-Fi. They had a little competition where you could become a diamond tier member, which obviously unlocks a whole lot of benefits. And I think what I really loved about this campaign was, in a way, they are really showcasing to the future what loyalty means, but in a very authentic way, where those future travelers don't even really understand probably Hilton, the brand, but they're really deeply engaged with the actual loyalty program of a hotel that they might visit later on in their life. So that for me is really such a great example. Also how brands are recognizing this connection between the real world and the virtual world, and just making it fun and engaging for people.
I think I sense you were going to jump in as well. I think so. With the few minutes that we have left, what's your point of view on that from a retail perspective? How does that gamification integrate into loyalty programs, if there are loyalty programs?
So we have a loyalty program across the Landmark groups called Shukran, one of the largest loyalty programs in the region, one of the oldest actually. So Shukran does now introduce a level of tiering as well for the loyalty program, and I think there's definitely opportunity for some level of gamification, more short term, just to make the whole experience a little more fun. But I think for me, it's a little outside of gamification. It's more about how we use each of these channels and what information we get from customers, so that we can actually use that to serve them better. It's about a higher level of personalization as we move forward. And that's also going back to your first question about attention span. If you tell somebody what they want to hear, they're probably going to listen to you. Right. So what information you gather from customers and how effectively you can use that to sort of go back to them, tie that into your creative message, use the right channels to get to the right kind of customer is really important. So using that first party data, especially in a time when we're going to be saying goodbye to cookies very soon, how do we use that first party data really effectively? Whether it's, when you collect it through a level of gamification, how you build lookalike audiences, how do you sort of catch them from a psychographic point of view, more importantly. So,
right. Cookies supposedly soon. And Ramzi, from your end?
For loyalty, a car is a medium to long-term purchase. So the average ownership is, let's just say, 3 to 5 years, sometimes even more. So loyalty is not as dynamic as it is in fast-moving consumer goods, but it is as important, obviously. So what we do, and I'll give you an example, we measure Net Promoter Score, and the questions asked or the surveys done are at the point of test drive, point of signing the contract to buy the car, 3 months later, 6 months later, and then 1 year later, and then once every year. For loyalty, honestly, good product, and make sure if that consumer ever breaks down, you solve their issue quickly, you give them a reserve car, and so on. So it's proper customer service. It's not as quick as they buy a car today, and you need to keep them there because they're going to buy one in 3 days, and so on. It's not that fast. So focus on the really high, important, basic needs that someone would expect from a good customer experience. Give them a good car and make sure you listen to them and solve their issues. And I'm sure you've heard someone recommending a car brand to you. They will tell you, I've had this car, it's been great, it has never broken down, and when it does, they fix it quickly. So obviously it's not that simple, but we have to try to simplify it and give a proper customer experience. And that is the key to loyalty in a car industry.
It comes down to how the consumer at the end of the day connects and stays connected with the brand. So we'll wrap it up with one last question in one sentence of looking towards the future. What do you believe will be the key driver towards customer loyalty in the next 5 years, for example? You can move down.
I think I gave a little bit away from my answer in the previous question. It's showing how much you know them.
Brand image. So again, I always go with examples because I think that's the easiest way to make a point. Tesla. If you're a minimalist, you want something that takes you from A to B, high tech, you're in that image, you buy the car. So establish a very strong image to your product and have people want to be associated with it.
Sam?
I'll wrap up. for me, I think it's really just important for marketers to continually realize that brand loyalty starts with brand building first. We need to, if you're looking for business growth, you need to drive new customers into your category, and that's really where strong storytelling comes in. Loyalty often means transaction, and I think a lot of us in this room are pressured by clicks, performance. What does that actually mean? Long-term success is loyalty, and the two really work hand in hand.
Great. That's a nice way to wrap it up. So brand image, show you know them, and make sure that you connect with them on all levels. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to our panelists. Talking about deep connections, elevating loyalty in the digital age. And thank you for staying loyal to Campaign Middle East. Thank you, the audience, our sponsors, and to our speakers today for joining us. I think as Nadeem mentioned, we've got QR codes if you want to give your feedback on the table. That would be really helpful. And we will be hosting our Saudi briefing, as mentioned, next month. So feel free to come and join us there and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.